So what we're doing now is actually putting the various parts that we've cut out through the drum sander, and what that does is just initially give a sanding on both sides of the surfaces, just so we get a start, and then we'll go down to the finer grits with a hand sand. We've done one side twice, we're just going to put them over now and put them back through to do the other side. So what we're up to now with the boxes is that we have to cut a rebate into the bottom sections so that we can fit the base in. So what we've done here is put our cutter into the router table, and we've adjusted the cutter height so we're at 5mm from the top of the table to the actual bottom of the cutter. So what we've done here is we've put tape around the box. Now what that's doing is just holding the box together because it's not actually glued at the moment, and if we don't do that, there's a chance that when we come around, especially to the corners, it'll pull the box apart with the cutter. So to stop that happening, we just used tape right around the box itself. So as you can see here, the cutter is going to be rotating in an anti-clockwise fashion. So for us to come in and do the cut, we've got to come in to one side, and then we have to turn clockwise so that we turn in the correct direction for the cutter to cut properly. So just running through part of the process is that we have a sanding board here, and the sanding board's got 80 grit on one side, 100 grit on the other side. So what we do, once we've got these assembled like this, then we go through and we run them onto the sandpaper in basically a figure-8 pattern, and rotate it and then run in a figure-8 pattern. And by doing that, you basically keep a fairly consistent sanding rate, and that allows you to get a flat position like that. The other area of concern is that for the dovetails, you have about a mil or 2 mil protrusion coming out, and again that's basically done by putting them onto the sanding board and just moving up and down, and that allows us to get that nice and flat. So now we've got to this stage, so as you can see here, we've got the rebate in, all the top and bottom surfaces and side surfaces have been sanded. So what we have to do now is pull the box apart, because our next process is to put some rebates in these areas, on both sides of the boxes, and that's all the boxes. So that'll be for a divider to fit into. And so we don't get confused and mixed up with the actual boxes, what we've done is numbered right the corners. So you got 1 to 4, and we've also marked the boxes, you know, A, B, C, D, etc., so that they all stay in the same configuration and the same parts go back with the same box. So now I've got to get these apart, and these dovetails are quite a tight fit, so the easiest way to do it is to just slowly take them apart like that. So we've got it at that stage there. Now I can just easily pull off one end, and then you can just manoeuvre the dovetails to disassemble the box. You've got to do that for each. So like I said, these are quite well fitting dovetails. So what we're doing now is we're actually going to put dividers in, or we're going to put the grooves in for the dividers for each of the boxes. Now the way we did it last time is that we actually cut the groove with a drop saw, but the problem you have there is that you get your proper depth cut at the start, but as you go down towards the base of the box, the saw doesn't cut all the way through, and you start to get a taper, which we can allow for and have adjusted for as far as these dividers go. But what we want to do this time is have that same depth all the way through. Here we've got a rebate cut in, and that's where the base of the box will fit into, and the groove will basically come from the top all the way down to that rebate. And what we want is, as we said before, a consistent depth all the way to that point. Now there's a range of possibilities that you could achieve this, and one of them is to set it up on a standard router, and you'd have to set up a whole range of stops, and you have to be guaranteed that the width of the product that you're putting over is all consistent. Otherwise you start cutting into the base here as you move down through. The other problem you got is that you can't see where your cutter is. So to achieve that, we had to make up a small jig. Now this is just a temporary jig, and it serves the purpose. So what we've got here is a baseboard. We've got a board that's square to that baseboard, and consequently we can now put a guide, and we'll square that guide to here. So that's our two references, and what we'll then do is to place the part that we want to cut the vertical slot in, and then what we've done is put a couple of boards on. One's a sacrificial board, the other one is just a holding board, and we can clamp all that down. So this will be clamped down to the board here, so that stays square. As we move this up and down to adjust for any slight variances, to hold the board secure, we can clamp down to here and here, so that holds all that. And the other thing that we're doing is putting stops in, so we can put stops in either side if we need them, and we can clamp those down so it doesn't shift left or right. This is the whole jig set up. The important part here is that this board here is square to that board. So we've done that, we've run the square along and got it dead square. And once we've got that set up, then everything else is consistent. It doesn't matter about this, it doesn't matter about these. They're just blocking bits of timber, and that's just a piece of timber to hold it in. And as you can see there, this first one is just a sacrificial board where we've done cuts before. What this now lets us do is bring the router in along this guide. When we can touch the router off on the guide, drop it down into the position where we want it, and then we can just run the router up. So what we've done here is put in our cutter. That's a 4mm cutter that we're using, and that's been adjusted so it's just protruding from the base here about 3mm, and we've set our stops to hold that position. So what this allows us to do now is to come in against the fence, and as you can see here, I can just slowly drop that down just into the groove, and then once I get into the groove, then I can just travel towards the camera and that'll allow me to cut the slot that I need to cut, and that slot will be consistent all the way through. Now this correlates to the actual pieces. So this is the side of the box, and you can see here we've cut our grooves up, and they don't cut into right at the bottom as you may get with a drop saw or something like that. And the other thing we don't have is a taper coming back down towards right at the bottom here.